Okay, this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren Planning Board, March 25th. We have all of the members of the planning board present. If you could just state your names. Starting with you, Jenny.
Jenny Flanagan. Terry Delapaz.
Ashley Maderas.
Tyler Dixon.
Fred Massey.
Mike Gerhart.
Jim Leffers.
Okay. We have the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any changes that anyone wanted to make to those? As usual.
Yeah, sorry. I did have a quick correction on page 4. Second from the bottom paragraph starts board member Flanagan. Third line says Conservation Bay. It should be Conservation Area. And another question on the very last page. Just the paragraph before adjournment, there was a motion and a second. Was there a vote?
Yeah, I did add that in. I noticed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
With those amendments, I'd ask for an approval of the minutes, a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mike, second,
Second.
Jenny, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Under applications, we're going to flip the applications. Right now, it appears St. Mary's of the Bay and then 10 Liberty Street. We're going to deal with 10 Liberty Street first. And the reason for that, and that is 10 Liberty Street Partners LLC, master/preliminary plan, 20-unit owner-occupied condominium housing development, including 5 affordable units. As a result of a consent order that has been filed, the application has this hearing is continued. I'll have Ben explain.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, a neighbor filed suit in this particular application. Therefore, I am recommended that this application, as noted by the chair, be continued for 1 month. So we need to be a motion.
Okay, so I'd ask for a motion to continue this based on the solicitor's recommendation.
I motion based on.
Ashley, Mike, second, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so that's it for Liberty Street until our next meeting, and this thing wends its way through the judicial system. St. Mary's of the Bay, this is a pre-application and master plan review. It asked to open this as a public hearing.
So basically, you just ask the applicant to come up and allow him to do a presentation. Once he closes the presentation, you can talk amongst the board members, and then a motion to open the public hearing. As the members of the public, if they want input, you can close the public hearing and deliberations or further conversations and discussions with the applicant.
Great. All right, lead on.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is William Dennis. I'm an attorney with offices located in Bristol, Rhode Island. I'm here this evening as legal counsel to the applicant, St. Mary of the Bay Church. As the chair mentioned, we are here this evening for a pre-application and master plan presentation. The application is to create a single-family house lot on the northerly side of what is now a portion of the parking lot at St. Mary of the Bay. The property lies easterly of Water Street and northerly not only of the parking lot area, but northerly of what's known as the Little League Park, the Warren Little League Park. It is assessor's lot number 92, a rather irregularly shaped lot, as the plans depict. There is already one single-family home on this property, and the application is to create a second home site on this lot. In conferring with not only the planning department, but also the building department and the Warren Department of Public Works, it was determined that the best configuration to create this lot was to create a public street which would run perpendicular to Water Street and run easterly and then take a northerly turn to connect with the southerly terminus of Linden Street. This is an area that has been used historically and by some considered a public street already. The area is paved with asphalt. It includes utilities. There's sewer in the area, water, even natural gas. The application is to create a permanent public way with the name St. Mary's Way, as I say, running from west to east and taking the turn north to Linden Street. Thomas Principe of Principe Engineering is responsible for the plans that are before you tonight and can probably give you a better scientific explanation of the plan. So for the time being, I will turn it over to Thomas Principe of Principe Engineering.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Tom Principe, Principe Engineering Company, registered professional engineer. Thank you, Bill. Again, I'll just give you a little brief overview of the technical aspects of the project, and I can open up to the chair and the board for any questions. So again, as Bill mentioned, we're in an R6 zone, so this requires 6,000 square feet of buildable area with frontage of 60 feet. So as we have here up on the screen, you can see that the two parcels that we're trying to create, there's an existing single-family dwelling, 430 Water Street, that's already on the property itself. So our proposed property line does not create any sort of non-conformities for zoning as far as setbacks, square footage of the lot, and frontage. So not only is the proposed lot, and again, just to correct Mr. Dennis, it is Assessor's Plat 5, lot 92, and then the proposed lot is 92A, just for the record. Our proposed lot will be about 9,005 square feet. So again, our minimum is 6,000. We're proposing 9,005 square feet on the proposed lot. And the remaining parcel for the existing single family will have 11,603 square feet. So both of them aren't even at the minimum square footage of the zone. They actually exceed both of them in the setbacks and the square footage. The frontage that we have also exceeds on the proposed lot. We have, it's tough to see. I don't know, Herb, can you just zoom in on the proposed lots just for the board? Might be a little bit easier. There you go. Just there. Perfect. Perfect. So we have 85 square feet on the proposed lot, which is to the left. I know it's not in color. That's the proposed parcel, 92A. That frontage is 85 feet and the requirement is 60. And again, the existing single family on the right-hand side of that screen, we are proposing 106.45 technically of frontage, where only 60 is required. As far as the utilities are concerned, we had a pre-application meeting with the planner, the DPW, and the fire department. We spoke to the water department and the sewer department, and we did some research. We went back and forth with them because it was very difficult to find utilities. But our survey crew, along with the meetings that we had, we located an as-built of the utilities. And what they are is a little diagonal across proposed lot 92A. You can kind of see it's in gray because it's existing, but we have a proposed easement because the utilities that service 430 are coming off on a little diagonal. It's a 45-degree angle that kind of cuts off a little bit of the proposed lot parcel. So we created an easement off of that just to preserve those utilities servicing 430. There is, again, sewer, water, and gas, obviously servicing the existing single family. And that is also available to us for the new proposed single family dwelling once it comes time to develop it. And again, our client is not the developer. Our whole goal here is to create this single family lot of record. And then someone else will be the developer for the property. So we don't have an idea of a size of the footprint. We just know it'll be conforming to the zoning of a single family dwelling. Again, as Bill said, the St. Mary's Way, we thought that was suited to, everybody uses it. Again, I played baseball here growing up in the field right across the street. Everybody used this as a street, as a connector street. So I think it's, we worked with her back and forth on the best way possible to kind of create this development. And we all thought that was the best way to do this, is have a throughway, deed it to the town, and it'll be called St. Mary's Way. And that will also be, it's 23,934 square feet. Because currently that right of way, Herbie, if you can stay right there on that page, that right of way that's in front of the new properties, that's actually, if you go to the existing conditions, Herb, in the sheet up, just so they can see what it looks like today. Is there an existing? Should be sheet 1. So it's down. Yeah, there we go. So if you can see that, that's how, again, GIS or whatever, but that's our class 1 survey. You can kind of see it's a very odd shaped lot. There's an existing single family dwelling, and then there's the parking area. So that's all one parcel itself. So again, what our proposal is to kind of cut that little jog on 430, create St. Mary's Way at the bottom of the page that goes up like an L or like a hockey stick to connect Linden Street and Luther Street. And then the remaining land will be split up between the existing single family dwelling and a proposed single family dwelling. And again, just this evening, Mr. Chair, I was informed that there, and again, I just want to kind of spearhead this, is a drainage question. I'm not going to say issue. And what Mr. Dennis had shown me were some photos, I believe, from the hunts on lot 79 to the north itself. And it looked like a photo that was looking towards our parcel, and it'd be the top left corner of the page, which would be northwest. So there's a block of trees there, right where your cursor is, Herb. So one thing I just want to kind of explain about just engineering and the process of how this is going to unfold. If you look at the topography, there's those dashed lines with numbers on them. When this house was built, we have to keep in mind, this was built before any sort of drainage regulations and runoff regulations were in place. So obviously they don't have a drainage mitigation system for that house. And it looked like the house was kind of built up. If you look at the contours, it's up on a slight hill, 2 to 3 feet. And their roof gutters just kind of go out onto the lawn. It's conforming. It's the way, they built those back in the 70s and the 80s. So right now, I mean, if you drive around the neighborhood, even I kind of noticed it. Because we're in springtime, we're in the wet season, and because we just had about an inch of rain, there's a lot of ponding on just lawns, people's lawns that usually aren't there. So it's a time of year. But again, with the runoff and that there's a low point in that corner. So again, if you look at the topography, that is the low point of that area. So naturally, it kind of wants to drain there. Now it will dry out, as the rain subsides and the leaves start popping off the trees and the water table drops. But what I want to make a point of is with this new single family dwelling, which again, we're just trying to create the lot. We're not going to develop it. At the time of the building permit process, we're going to have to work with the developer or the builder on what exactly they want to build, the size, the square footage, and the topography and the elevations. So we have to actually work with that. And by your new regulations and the soil erosion rules, we're going to have to mitigate any excess drainage or runoff that we might create with the driveway, with the roof, and even the topography. So again, knowing this, and again, we can put, a note or a condition about that. We could review that corner to see how we can make it better, but it won't be worse with this new single family dwelling that we developed. So I just wanted to kind of mention that to you and the board. Do you have any questions?
Again, I think, in the drainage,
Yep.
given the fact that both of these parcels are owned by the same applicant, there is an existing issue, given the fact that it was built prior to the regulations being enacted, but, what I would like to see happen is that the existing problem is taken into consideration, as well as any mitigation that would come from a new building there.
Okay.
As
Sure.
a good neighbor.
Sure.
I think that, to me, is, and there are, means of doing that would be,
Absolutely.
swales,
We could
to,
treat it as a whole. So what we could do
Right.
is treat that property with this property and share some sort of swale or
Yeah.
drainage system. So we treat it as a whole from an engineering standpoint of view.
yeah, I think that would, I think would respond well
Yep.
to the concerns raised by the Hunts
Sure.
who, are not
Absolutely.
trying to put a wooden shoe in the gears here, but
Right.
they are concerned about the water, and that is an issue, particularly since it's so close to the flood zone.
Right.
This is an issue of concern to us townwide, given the fact that it's very low lying and you already have
It
the
is.
possibility for overwash just on the other side as that goes. The other thing is, when you talk about an easement, now those lines that you referenced that go on the diagonal.
Can you go to the proposed now? If you slide to the next sheet and then zoom in on it a little bit more for the board? If you zoom in one more on it, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
so those are the gas, sewer, and water lines.
correct.
How do you propose an easement if the house is going to be on top of those?
So again, that's gonna be that's gonna become basically your building envelope. So, I mean, if I had a laser pointer, the dash line around the lot, there you go, Herb, that's the building envelope for the actual building. And then the other dash line that delineates and demarcates the easement line, Herb, if you can just show the easement line, which is a dash dot, yeah, right there. So that's the easement line. So basically, if I were to highlight a section of the building envelope and the easement line, you still have a decent sized building envelope. It would just be slightly pushed back.
Yeah, so they're not running under the
No,
house.
no,
Okay,
we
right.
would not do that now. Again, I mean, just for transparency purposes, because I've seen this before. I mean, if the buyer or the developer or the builder would want to entertain the payment of moving some of those, I mean, they could easily be moved.
Yeah,
But-
so long as they're not.
Right, but
under
they
the-
understand, yeah, we're not proposing that, and obviously, we're gonna disclose all that to the buyer, so,
Okay, well, I think those would probably be conditions that we would probably
absolutely.
raise in the preliminary plan, but this is the time to raise them now so that you're aware of what, is there.
Yeah.
Any other issues?
So the
concerns?
parking and all that would have to be done on top of the easement?
So parking for so you can park on top of it, absolutely, yeah, there can be a driveway, so the garage can be on that side, and you can drive right over them, yes.
But
That's not an
but if
issue.
Maintenance had to happen.
So, yeah, so again, if they have to maintain, right, then they're gonna have to rip up the driveway,
Okay.
yep,
Brandon, I have a question.
yes.
In terms of public services, snowplow, trash removal, given this is going to be a new public street, who's going to be responsible for those?
So again, I believe, Mr. Dennis, if you want to elaborate on that, I believe, again, that the intent is to turn it over to a public street, so I believe we would have access to town services with trash and plowing. Correct? Correct. Just wanted to-
So what's the intent? They're going to sell the lot to a developer. Is that the intent?
I think that is the intent. I think both properties, the existing dwelling that's there, the ranch house that's there.
You want, we can both stay up here. It's fine, we can stay.
Yeah, the intent would be to sell both those properties, the lot with the existing home and the vacant lot.
As a parcel or as two separate parcels?
Well, I think the church would entertain any offers.
Again, I think one of the things that when we talked about drainage would be that the two parcels would need to be
On a
operate-
common drainage plan.
So again, from the engineering side, we don't technically need a common system. So
Right,
right now it's one lot, right? So what we could do, because I saw the pictures and it's clear that there's roof gutters on the existing house and they go out towards the back just because it's a gable. So it
Yeah.
runs this way. So it's fairly straightforward where we could, there you go, thanks, sir. It's fairly straightforward where we could propose a system for the existing lot because it's probably cleaner to have each individual house lot have their own drainage system rather than a shared system.
Yep.
If we could avoid it. So because again, this looks pretty simple to me from an engineering standpoint of view, is the backyard just slopes down, right?
Right.
So there's the gable I talked about, there's the gutters.
Yeah.
And then the gutters in the back from the email I saw this today is there's just an extension that kind of goes out to the backyard and it just drains. So obviously that exacerbates the drainage issue. So we could collectively propose a system for that house that we're looking at now at 430 in their backyard to mitigate that runoff. And then, like I said, when there's a building permit that's issued for the new house, we don't know how big, obviously it'll meet all the lot coverage requirements in the R6 zoning. We would have a separate system on the new parcel to mitigate any excess runoff. So what would happen is just like when we do a subdivision, they say no net increase in runoff when
Right.
we do roads and stuff. This would be a significant reduction because what we would be doing is taking the existing roof area and mitigating where it's uncontrolled, they call it in engineering,
Mhm.
and we would be controlling the runoff as it is now. So then when we propose a development or propose a building, obviously that will comply with all the runoff and the drainage standards. So there would actually be a reduction in any runoff or ponding in that northwest back left corner, which is the low point. Oh, there we go. Yeah, scroll up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, no, it's the mouse, right? So that back left corner is where it looks like the photo, and that's the low point that we would be controlling. But like I said, if there's just a small system that can pick up just the back gutters, because to be honest with you, I don't know if it's fair to pick up the entire roof. I say pick up the back half because that's where it's draining. The front half is draining towards the parking lot and out towards Water Street. It's not going into the neighbor's yard in the back itself. So if you can pick up at least half the lot, that's further reducing your
Right.
net increase.
So again, it's a matter of some action prior to the
Correct.
sale and then
Okay.
caveats put
Just
into
have-
it
and just
when
put
someone
something like a
wants to
system
build a
like that
building.
here.
Yeah.
So another quick question, does the town council have to create the new street? I mean, how does the new street get created, by us or by the town council?
Well, again, it varies from town to town. We have prepared a deed of streets with a very specific legal description here, which we're prepared to tender.
Ben?
Some towns, when they record the plans, they deem that an acceptance of a public way.
Town council would have to accept it.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
I hate belaboring the point, but across the street at the ballpark, there's a drainage ditch there. And good 3-4 months a year, that's got water in it all the time. And so I'm concerned, and again, this would be for the end developer owners of the property, that runoff from either going into the street would then go into this swale that is over capacity. The water table is extremely high at this location.
Yeah,
That swale
right.
we're seeing right there on the cursor, there's a spring underneath the parking lot that's just shooting water out
Mhm.
6 months a year.
Right, and that's basically the low point for the entire parking lot. So the entire parking lot's paved, so all that runoff goes.
Well, but even after a week of dry weather, there's still water flowing from,
Yeah, the high
there's
water table.
there's a stream underneath the parking lot that's
Right.
exiting at that point.
Right, yep. So
Um,
again, that would just be to my point about there won't be any net increase with our development. And
Mm.
actually, it'll be a net decrease if what Mr. Chair was talking about, and I think we're amenable to, and our client is further reducing that, putting some sort of system in the existing building, but yeah, the existing house, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
the water table's high.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and it's
So-
flood zone.
so-
Soils
right.
are salt, poor, and you see that during, again, right now, we're in the wet season, so the water table is extremely high. And then once the leaves start blooming and everything starts to blossom, then that water table drops, but very slowly, that's where it dries up.
Thank you.
Is there any sense of long-term use for any more of the church property here? I mean, is this part of a longer proposal or?
Good evening. My name is Bill Estrella from 58 Baker Street. I'm the trustee, one of the trustees at St. Mary's of the Bay. And one of the issues, as I sat on that side years ago, is why we're doing this and what we're actually doing. So let me just try to explain the story to you. A number of years ago, when we started to formalize some of the financial issues the church had, one of the things that we looked at is what property we actually had and what we actually were using it for. Historically, although I celebrate my 71st birthday yesterday, I haven't been around that long. That was the town dump. That property was the town dump. At that end, it was actually donated by the Blount family years and years ago. It was actually filled. So it was the town dump. It's always been full of water. And actually the waterfront came into the area where the parking lot is. Now, historically, the church has that entire parking lot and gave the permission to use the Little League field. Actually, it's the Fred Genetto Little League field because Mr. Genetto was so active in the church and town politics. And one of the things that happened was that we had a need to put up nuns. The nuns lived in a convent across the street from St. Mary of the Bay, and that convent now has been transferred over to the Naffey home. So we had some nuns, Sister Edwin's sister Jolene, and they needed a place to live. So through the auspices of Senator Genetto and a few others, we acquired that little extra piece of property on the parking lot, and that was a pre-manufactured house that was built on a slab. That's how it ended up there. And it was a large property, larger than we needed. We have no intention of using it right now. We're using it for some of the activities that we use for the M25 group, which helps immigrants and refugees. But we're not really using it as a church property. So a discussion came about with Father Joe and Deacon John and several of us about the fact that we needed to renovate and do some maintenance on the rectory, but really had no funds. So we looked at other sources of income that we could use. So we looked at this property and said, well, we're really not using it. Why don't we see if we can sell the property? And when we looked at it, because of the size of it in the R6 zoning, it appeared important to subdivide it. That was the conversation we had almost 3 years ago with the town manager, previous town managers, and town planner at the time. On a Fireman's Memorial Sunday, a beautiful day, I, in my full dress uniform, said, can we do this? And they said, sure, not a big problem. We'll be all done in a couple of weeks. Well, that was almost 3 years ago now. Fortunately, we talked to Herb and a number of other people, and they advised that because we were actually at this major subdivision, which is incredulous to me, but that's the rule, we needed street frontage. The address to those 3 properties that you see there is Water Street, because at the time, that there was no street there. There's a paper street that everybody accepted. As a matter of fact, when I was the council president, Harpo Tavares was the town surveyor, and they would plow that street on a regular basis because that's where the emergency parking was. So everybody thinks it's a street, and it actually is documented in some old maps as a paper street between Water Street and Linden. So when we started to talk about all this, and Bill fortunately accepted our invitation, Actually, he volunteered, you know, when you volunteer, it's always a bad thing. But he volunteered to take on this project. We started to look at all the other things that we had to do. And that's where we are now. So what we'd like to do is do what we need to do in order to sell this property and fix the rectory. And because we have to do it in this manner, we'd like to do it as painless as possible because we aren't developers. We want no part of the development. But we do understand there's a lot of historic nature here in the fact that we like to put it back on the tax rolls. And despite the fact that I'm not directly involved in politics anymore, I'd like to see it back on the tax roll. So we're not taxing it now. What we'd like to do is subdivide it so that we can sell it and put it back on the rolls. So I appreciate your time being here to answer the
Excellent.
questions.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
That's very helpful. Once a public servant, always a public servant. Any other questions, concerns? I think the street matter, as we said, is up to the town council. It certainly makes sense. And it would seem to me that, given the fact that that would be an accepted street, it would not be like the situation that we've run into with some of the condo developments where they're responsible for the trash and that. To me, this is, you know, much more traditional street creation, you know, of something that's already used as a street. So, yeah.
I think this is more for the solicitor and the planner, just what is allowed by right? Because like everything that is, aside from the street, which is in our decision, everything that was said is just somebody selling their property and asking it for it to be subdivided, which seems very much in the right of a landowner.
Basically what we run into is that we're not having any issues with regard to the creation of the lot from that standpoint, but you have to have, but our regulations require road frontage. And it's based on an improved road frontage. So for them, the parcel, the way it's currently configured, you can see it in yellow in the bottom left-hand corner. They can't create that lot without the road frontage. So the idea that we bridged together was to say they can do that. The road that everybody thinks is a municipal road will eventually make it a road. And then with the acceptance, that gives them the opportunity to create road frontage and to do what they want to do. We tried very hard to figure out a way to keep this administrative, but because of the creation of a road, that necessarily brings it to you.
So we just have to approve the road, so then the town council can then.
Right, and we've already had discussions with the public works director, who has no problem taking this on from that standpoint. And basically with the way the road is, the road is configured today and it's in its state, the DPW director is not concerned about subbase and all that sort of stuff in terms of of what we may be inheriting as a road. So that's not a concern of his either.
Does it meet town standards?
I cannot answer that definitively in terms of, say, the subbase and all that, if it were being built today, but that was a part of, we've done site visits out there. The public works director hasn't done any test pits or borings, if you will, excuse me, to figure that out from that standpoint, but based on his observation and being here, he's not concerned about that. So it will meet basic requirements of a street for us to accept it. As you can see, if you look at drawing a blank today, Linden Street, the width of Linden Street in terms of the right of way, it goes down through, and you can see it matches in terms of the little jog where it's like a hockey stick, and then when it comes around the corner, it's at least maintaining that width as it goes around.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to open the meeting, the public hearing. Could I have a motion? I'll make it.
I'll second.
Second, Tyler, all in favor?
Aye.
If you would like to comment on this particular proposal, you're welcome to do so. We ask that you keep your comments to within 3 minutes, which is standard for our planning board meetings. And when you come up, please identify yourself and your address, if you would, please.
Good evening, members of the board. Mary Hunt, 50 Wheaton Street. I think you got my email.
Sure.
I very much appreciate your comments with being amenable to the drainage situation. That is the biggest concern that we have. In the plans, it was pretty striking that the dwellings behind this parcel weren't necessarily mentioned very much. The drainage is it's there more than you think. Good number of those trees in the back are dead. So they're not going to be absorbing any of that water when the leaves come down. It covers the water, but the water is there. So that's the biggest concern for us. You've answered most of our other questions. The only other question, and I'm not sure this is a question for the board or not, as we are only in the engineering, not the development stage, but I would wonder, should further down in the development, damage result to the yards, to the foundations, to the basements, to I mean, I'm here with both parcel owners. We haven't been able to put up any significant fencing in a long time. The ground is that wet. What recourse do we have down the line? And I don't know that that's a question for this board or not, but it's something that certainly we'd be concerned with.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, to me, we're seeing a lot of good intentions
Sure.
here in terms of, how we're going to handle this. And we've got a much better handle now on drainage, even in terms of the 16 years that I've been on the planning board. I mean, it's eons of change in terms of being able to capture it through things like rain gardens even and swales as opposed to, concrete bunkers. And that is my concern, because in the past, the town has allowed development. So I've got one in my neighborhood that is literally a swimming pool where a road goes down. So we want to be sure that that doesn't impact you or, any of your neighbors. Because that is, now the question of liability, I think is.
I would just say that the regulations put in place in the state and locally put in place purposely to protect that type of situation. They can't make any guarantees
Certainly,
outside
yeah.
the regulations. So the only thing they can do is make sure that they comply with all the regulations. And if they issue any waivers, they got to justify why they're not going to make a certain requirement, or they can put conditions on, such as the chair has alerted to.
Great. Okay, I think that's it. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank
you
you.
for your attention.
Letter
Thank
was
you for
very-
being amenable to our concerns. It's very much appreciated. We're a great neighborhood.
No, yeah, it was well written and
They're
very
good
coaching
neighbors.
and not, it was very reasonable too. So thank you.
So
Appreciate
one
it.
quick question, are you going to remove the trees that are the subject of this complaint? The ones that are at the back of the yard?
Great. All right. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
One more,
Mr.
can I?
Chairman, just related to that, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that people are aware that Ms. Hunt submitted an email. I gave it to the planning board this evening, as well as to the applicant's attorney. So I think just for the record, we're acknowledging that is being entered into the record. It will be available, in the municipal offices from that standpoint, if anybody's interested in looking at it. And since we just got it tonight, I'll make sure that it is included in the next packet as we come forward with this application.
Ashley?
I guess, so I think it's like, I feel like we're kind of blurring a little bit lines here. So right now, the decision is based on a subdivision in a street, because we don't even have a developer or a plan, and we won't have that. So we can't really make a decision based on a hypothetical development that we don't even know what is.
So basically, you are being asked tonight just to approve that subdivision.
Right.
In fact, and then if they do sell it off, conditions that you do apply to subdivision do run with the land. And then if an sell the land to a developer, they have to comply. They have to go within that point where they will have to come back for the zoning board, et cetera, as a whole.
And they're still, yeah, they're still gonna be regulated under any developer.
Well, you have to comply fully with every single part of zoning. all the
Right,
regulations,
yeah, so
requirements.
it's, yeah, that's okay.
Yes.
Because it's, I think that's a little with blurring here, because it's not that they're proposing to subdivide and build on this land.
Correct.
They're just proposing to subdivide. So
Right.
somebody else could possibly purchase and buy this land, but that somebody will also have to go through all the
Correct.
requirements in DEM and drainage and things like that on top of anything being done here.
And to add to that, that other person may make much different requests and try to ask for more variances and all that kind of stuff, but that would be after the case.
After the case, let's
Right.
keep in mind. that-
Right.
So under the variance standard,
Just,
can't create the hardship.
Right.
right,
So that's always.
Right, that-
One of the variance.
and that's kind of what I was
Correct.
making sure, because I think that's one of the things that is a little murky as we talk about what if in the future.
Yes.
Right now, I'm just worried about what if right now.
Somebody.
Well,
wants
it's got to-
Again, if you make this, like any other pre-application, is an opportunity to get that information out prior to the preliminary plan so that the folks have it and it's not in a formal setting, it's not a mandate, it's not a design, but it's to see the willingness of the applicant to work with the board outside the specifics of regulations and laws. And I mean, that's, to me, is one of the reasons we're here as a planning board, is not to simply rubber stamp, but to look beyond and say, how does it impact the rest of the neighborhood? Can we incorporate those into the land so that when the developer comes, they have those restrictions placed upon them? So that's the purpose behind this.
Yeah, going above and beyond the minimum.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. And that's,
And just a point of clarification, just for the people in the stands and chair and the members of the board. When we say the word developer, it's semantics, right? So because we do big development, small development, I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable. We don't have to develop the road again, as our DPW director said. It meets town standards to his standard. It's been there for 30, 40 plus years. So when this, hopefully, again, if we do go through this process and we do get approvals, the town council approves it, we get our final approvals, we record the subdivision plan and we get a plat and a lot, the existing house goes on the tax roll, and then the new parcel, again, put a for sale sign on it. It's not necessarily a developer. Again, it could just be a young couple married, 2 kids that hire a builder. It could be a builder that builds it. But again, when they come to the table, when all this is said and done, they'll have the conditions by the board, right? We'll have everything addressed with drainage that's existing today, and maybe the trees we'll talk about. But when it comes time again, our company most likely will be involved as well. So we'll have the history, and also we'll have our rule book. So for when we prepare that final site plan, or when they go for the building permit department. And again, I think Urban DPW reviews it, planning reviews it, zoning is going to review it. And then they're going to check the record to see what kind of conditions were placed on that. They're going to see the easement. And then that's when we finalize the grading and the elevations and the driveway and drainage issues. But even, I guess, just what we do personally, or my personal professional opinion, is we already go a little bit overboard on the minimum regulation. So again, just to reiterate and drive home, right now, this evening, we're talking about, we're going to go above and beyond the minimum by obviously capturing and collecting the existing home, but also when we do construct the new home, when, a young married couple comes and wants to construct their first home, their starter home. Again, it's not going to be a large colonial. It's going to be a really nice, small 3-bedroom cave, raised ranch, something suited to the neighborhood, because that's the size of the lot, when we talk about lot coverage and drainage. So all of those elements come later, and then there's another crack at it with the building permit review process. So again, mainly, for the board, but also for people here this evening as well.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, the issue with the drainage is going to be correct.
Yeah, you can put a condition, if you do approval today for the master plan, I'm sure we can add those conditions. I think it's appropriate at this level. Well, probably.
Okay.
Fred, I have another question, if you don't mind. There's an encroachment from the property to the east. Their fence is about 10 feet onto the lot that's got the house on it right now. Has there been any discussion about approaching that property owner, finding out what the status is, whether there's adverse possession, anything like that?
No, not that I'm aware.
Okay. I just off the top of my head, it looks like that even if that were to go away, you still are conforming.
Correct. Yes, because again, just for the record, we have 11,600 square feet.
Okay.
Almost double.
Before you close the public hearing, I just gonna do the applicant's attorney's job for him because he forgot to ask. I believe that they wish to ask that preliminary and final be combined as one step.
Yeah, I think we can do that once we go to the.
But he's got to make that request, and the reason why I was raising the issue was the public hearing is still open in case someone wanted to speak to that.
I'll be happy to ask that the preliminary and final
And what would that be?
be please combined. Yeah, and again, I asked Tom to speak a little bit more about the drainage, but you know, basically all the regulations that you alluded to over the last 16 years essentially require home developers to keep their water on their own property.
Right.
And that's what we intend to do here, is to keep our water on our own property.
And again, I think, as you said, you're willing to go the extra mile
Yeah.
and to make an existing situation to remediate that as best as you're possible. So that's what we're looking for.
And if those stages could be combined, we'd be very grateful.
Yeah.
Thank-
Anyone else?
Good evening, members of the board. Dave Bolster, 53 State Street. I guess I'm just reiterating what's already been said, but just to codify that I've been around long enough to see developments come as Fred has and Bill Estrella has, where things did get approved and came back to haunt us later. And so, as well as the board and all the other officials that would have to review this, I haven't heard mention yet that the town's engineering firm would be reviewing the plans too, to make sure that when it goes through them, that they sign off on it as well. So I think that would be appropriate for a situation like this. So that's it.
That's basically up to the board and the town planner, whether or not that is, they're not satisfied with the presentation, or if they got some serious concerns or issues. I think that's when it's appropriate to make that request. But that's a request by the board versus from the public.
Okay.
So, in other words, we've seen applications before that the board has serious concerns with. That's when they make that request to have an agency or a firm look at from their perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather not turn it into an adversarial situation unnecessarily.
If I could address it, you know, usually a town's engineer would review calculations or engineering that was performed by the applicant. And quite frankly, aside from the plans that we have here tonight, there hasn't been any engineering work done by Principe Company.
Right.
Hi, I'm Rick Matt, and I live in Kennicott Avenue in Warren. My question, I don't quite understand it yet. It seems like you're putting the cart before the horse. The property hasn't been sold yet. The property could be sold as one single parcel, and the developer decide to divide it or not. The developer wants to put one house on it, knock down what's there, and put one great big house on there. What's to stop them?
Well, we're talking about a subdivision here.
Yeah.
So.
You're
that's what-
proposing a subdivision, but it's not necessarily going to be a subdivision.
Well, I think
Once
what
the
we-
contractor buys the property, if he decides he doesn't want a subdivision,
He'd have to come back to it doesn't, the point of a subdivision is it subdividing two
right,
properties. And
then in that
That's
case,
the
they can
basis.
sell each property separately.
then,
Once it's recorded, it's two separate properties and treated accordingly.
Okay, but if,
So yes, somebody could theoretically buy both and then have to come back and go through this same process for us to undo what we did.
So that's what
But
stopped
we're
them,
trying, yeah, so
or
what we're saying is
get
this
them
is a
paused.
better use because it fits the size and scale of the rest of the homes to have two, instead of just saying, yeah, let's put a road there, let it go to a developer and,
Or if the
you know, you
developer
could put.
decides to build a duplex.
Exactly, exactly. And so yeah, so this is actually a better way to do it because at least to put some layers between making it easy for somebody to
Okay.
just put up a huge
Thank you.
parcel.
Joan Coltrane, One Stone Gate Road. I have a question maybe you've already answered, but is this property zoned so that only a single-family dwelling can be built?
So it's zoned within the R6. And as we all know, we've all seen that there are things that often come before us that are now at the state's hands that we can't change. So as a planning board, we can give variances under a R6 within the scale of that property. So you just don't know who's gonna come. The smaller the property, the less likely you are gonna get a large because it's not gonna fit in a pro forma. But at the same time, we all know that there are state laws with affordability that throw all that out the door.
I think what
So
she's
this-
trying to
this is
say is.
Coming across as a comprehensive
Right.
permit. So
Right.
this is under the conventional zoning of a regular subdivision. Whatever is allowed as a permitted use under our table of permitted uses can go there. There are changes to the law with regard to permitted versus special use versus not permitted type of thing. But basically speaking, and we have not made the changes to our regulations accordingly yet. So we basically have to have the statute and our ordinance open at the same time frame. But basically whatever is permitted in the R6 would be permitted on this parcel.
Well, I'm not sure I know what's permitted in the R6, but I think what you're saying is that a developer could come in with a comprehensive permit and build a fourplex.
I'm not sure you can. I
That's
think that
just what I'm
that's-
trying to determine.
Again, I don't think on an individual parcel.
Reiterate what Herb just said, basically, is that Level's in R6 today and has right, I mean, to develop by right, they can do it, they'll be able to do it in this property. By special use permit, it's the same thing, they have the same rights as anybody else that owns an R6 in this town.
And
So-
in my
We
looking at.
certainly can't limit or put any type of restriction as
And-
to what is developed there. It's
I-
an R6.
I thought that question, and so by right, they can put one house on each lot. With a special permit, they could put a duplex on the smaller lot or a triplex on the larger lot. With a special permit, with permission from this board.
But again, that's like, we have to.
That's speculative.
Yeah.
Well, no,
That's
outside-
theoretically.
This is outside the
yeah.
scope of what we're doing.
And-
No,
and
I
Technically, theoretically, you can do anything, anywhere in
Well,
certain
not
cases, right?
I mean, I understand that. I just wanted to clarify the fact that depending on who purchases that property, a development could result in multifamily units. There could be a comprehensive permit requested. There could be denser settlement than the argument that's being made here. And I understand the argument, and I think it's a good idea. It's just that I think we need to recognize that there could certainly be denser settlement on those two parcels, even though we're calling this a subdivision. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, the first thing is to close the public hearing. Motion, second. Tyler, all in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
The next motion would be to combine master and preliminary.
Only if the board is comfortable with what's been presented thus far, and they can certainly do that, that's your discretion.
I would motion to combine.
Second, is that Tyler, or did you?
No, I have one more question, because I'm not sure whether it has been clear to me as to.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can, do you want to
Stop.
take it
I'll
off?
take the motion off. So
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So one thing that when I was just listening to you explained and then something that the chairman said. I just want to make sure that there's a understanding about what is being proposed. You indicated that the law essentially requires that you not allow water off the property. All right, so, yeah, sure. Is that okay? I just want,
Just, and again, to clarify the clarifying,
Yeah.
it's no net increase.
yeah, that's what I mean.
So, well, there's a difference between no water off the property,
I understand.
so I need to make that on the
Yeah,
record.
exactly. And so there being no net increase is different than mitigating this existing problem. And I was hearing some mitigating the existing problem, so I wanted to make sure
Do that.
that there was a clarification. What'd you say?
I think we need to mitigate the current problem.
So that's what I want to make sure that whatever we're proposing is.
We can
like,
continue
we
this.
all understand what we're proposing.
And again, and I want to clarify again for the record, is we're not going to solve the problem there. There's a current existing condition exists that has nothing to do with our client
Right.
and what he did and they did. So we're going to comply with the regulations and we're going to go above and beyond that as well by further mitigating the runoff and the net increase. So it's going to be a net decrease in runoff, right? So we're going to go above and beyond that minimum requirement. So that drainage issue will not be exacerbated by our proposed or the future owner's house. Hopefully, again, it's a single family dwelling for the neighbors. And then we're going to further mitigate the existing home to help with that drainage issue. But I'm not saying that issue is going to just go away and it's going to be dry after this, because there's an issue there.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be exacerbated by this.
Okay, good.
Is it? Okay.
That's perfect.
All right.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Is that, we done? Comments?
Are we done with public comments?
Well,
No, that, we already closed the public meeting.
We closed.
Now we're going to the motion to approve combining master and preliminary plan. Ashley, you want to?
But
Sorry.
Fine.
motion back on the table.
What?
I'll
Okay,
second that.
wait a minute. So the preliminary and final plan at the next meeting?
Correct, yes, the next meeting. will
Yes,
be both.
correct. Okay. So the motion is to combine the preliminary and final plan at the next meeting.
So,
For the next meeting.
For the next. They're gonna
For the
submit,
next
they're gonna
meeting, yeah.
submit combined preliminary. and
Ah, the
final.
prepositional phrases are
So
flying.
you're gonna have, so
Flying,
basically,
my
you're
child.
gonna have basically, you'll have one review.
Right.
And all I'll deal with as the administrative officer thereafter is ensuring that they meet the conditions of that
That were
combined
established.
review.
Okay.
so when does the road go in front of the town council? After that?
After the plan is recorded,
It's just final plan, correct?
Okay. So to get back to the motion, it's the preliminary and final combining those two for and at the next meeting.
Still
And
stand by my motion.
Ashley,
I still stand by.
second. Jim Leffers, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Now, in terms of the master plan, the conditions that we've discussed have been agreed upon by the applicant, which are primarily anything different from what they're proposing was the idea that they would work to mitigate the runoff from the existing dwelling and would follow all regulations for the proposed lot to ensure no net gain on the runoff. And I think that was pretty much it in terms of conditions.
Do we have to say the town approval of the?
Yeah, so as we've done in the past, somebody wants, you're at the stage now that you wish to make a motion to approve, you can turn to me. I can put some required findings on the Rhode Island general law.
Yeah.
You can add the conditions, and then you can get a second, and then we just.
Okay, in terms of the street, as part of our movement would be a recommendation for the town council to accept that street. So that would be the third element, condition within the motion to accept the master plan as presented.
You're gonna do a motion?
I will motion,
Okay,
So based on, and this, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
The motion was made to approve based on, legally competent evidence on the record, testimony today, testimony from, neighbors, that the proposed development is consistent with the comp plan, is in compliance with standards and provisions of the municipal, town of Warren zoning ordinance. You know, significant negative environmental impacts, with all the required conditions that we placed on this. And the proposed land development, will have adequate permit physical access for public street, as you heard testimony. And, that's the finding.
great. So I'll make a motion to accept that, master plan with those conditions as then said. Second,
second.
Ashley, all in favor? Aye. All right, good luck. We'll see you in a bit.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hopefully we've done it 3 years in life. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody? They could build a spaceship. Yeah.
There are a couple people with and after we talked about the street, so.
Oh, okay. If any of the folks are here for Liberty Street, are you here? I'm sorry, we switched it on the agenda. There is a legal action in the, pending against the master plan approval. And so as a consequence, we are not hearing the preliminary plan and we're continuing it, the matter, we've continued it to our next meeting. This is all subject to what happens within the judiciary in terms of there. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, come on up. It's
Yes. Well, my mom, who's 94, lives across the street
right.
from the.
So we're not hearing that Liberty Street because
Okay.
one of the neighbors has filed legal
good.
action against it. And as a consequence, we're not going to move ahead until that is adjudicated.
Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
No problem.
But that's a good thing.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get you earlier.
The matter was continued to next month's meeting.
So next Monday,
Next month's meeting, public meeting, yes.
Next month.
April, the first Monday in April, or whatever. even if-
Next month's meeting is what he
Last
said.
month, last meeting and last,
April 22nd.
April
There you go.
22nd, thank you.
yeah, we've been going through that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay,
Oh, no, that's great.
okay, the election of the vice chair.
I
Someone-
would nominate
Yep.
Mike if we're open for nominations.
Okay,
Second the nomination for Mike Gerhart.
anyone else?
To nominate, you want to just, what is?
The second on that nomination.
Well, I
Good
seconded
second.
for Mike Gerhart.
Mike Gerhart, And then I nominate Tyler.
Is there a second on that nomination, Tyler?
Okay,
So
then,
that nomination fails, therefore, have a vote for.
those in favor of Mike Gerhard as vice chair?
Aye.
All right. Public comment, for, oh, I'm sorry. Did you?
Thank you.
Chair, quickly, so just to clarify that, because everyone's kind of raised their hand, so it was it a 5-2 vote, or was it a?
It looked unanimous.
Unanimous.
Was it unanimous? Okay,
Yeah.
just double check.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, we'll take a short public comment for items not on the agenda. Anyone? Okay, hearing a resounding silence. We'll move forward. with the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's going to be short because I've been so swamped with work. I wasn't able to
Now, that's
draft
a good
up.
thing, you know.
I wasn't able to
I'll give
draft
you
up
3 minutes.
a written report, but the biggest news is, which I believe that I forwarded to you an email. If I didn't, my apologies, but the council did receive, essentially got the plan, the comprehensive plan, and they did agree with the date of April 8th, with all apologies to Jenny, who's going to go look at the eclipse. But so I think it was 6:30 here on Monday, April 8th for the joint session with on the comprehensive plan. Again, the idea there is to see if there is anything that the council as a whole is having some major issues with that would dictate some additional direction for you guys to draft something. If not, again, my hope is that we're all on the same page. And if we're found to be on the same page, generally speaking, you would then move forward to warn your public hearing. Okay, so that would be the beginning of entering into the formal process of moving toward adoption. If they do have some major changes that they want to see done, I will make sure it stays at your level, that you do the changes based on what's discussed, because the council just right now doesn't have the bandwidth, for lack of a better term, to take on that sort of thing. So again, you would hear what they're doing, make the changes, and then warn your public hearing. So either way, it's going to be a net result of you moving into the public hearing process.
How many public hearings?
One from you, one from the council, and then they can adopt.
So the onus is on them to give their problems. We don't have to do anything but listen. Is that fair to say?
That's the way I set it up. I made your job easier than theirs from that standpoint. But again, if there is, I think there may be some individuals on the council that might have some issues with regard to the plan. That's why I very specifically said issues of the council as a whole. Okay.
So would they have to vote on that? I mean,
No.
let's assume that somebody had a problem.
Yep.
How would you know whether it was the council as the whole or one?
So I think at
member?
that point, that's the purpose of the joint session, is that your folks are going to be there mostly listening, maybe adding clarity to something as questions or issues, discussion points come up. If a particular member of the council raises a particular issue that they have,
We should.
I think it's basically to lay that on the table, have some discussion about it, determine whether that is across the board or just an individual.
I got it.
And then the council at that time frame could, you'll get a general sense of consensus or not as to whether there's a bigger issue to be had and warranting some additional change. The other way that I want to try to look at it as well is that I want to keep the process moving forward in a progressive fashion, so that if there is a particular issue that comes up, but it's not enough to sort of hold up the process and keep it moving, there could be some changes that you might decide to make in your public hearing process, which you're more than eligible to do under the enabling legislation. And then as it is formally given to the council, they'll see that you made an attempt to address that particular concern, and then they can either make change, do whatever as part of their public hearing process.
So a final question is, have we had any response to the outstanding elements from the state?
Not yet. The three outstanding elements, they were submitted. We're just awaiting the review from that. The state knows that we're, moving forward with a joint session and all that. Again, as we may get issues from them to make changes, we'll make them as we go through the process. It would be nice to have those before you warn your public hearing, but it doesn't necessarily preclude you from it doesn't stop at that.
We've done pretty well in terms of the responses from the state.
Yeah.
Once we got off the hyper focus on market to Medicom, I think, my sense has been that their comments have been
Constructive.
and minimal.
Yep. Yep. And
Have they had a chance to look at our responses, the state?
yes, in some instances, they've the changes have been made and gone off, and there's really nothing else beyond that because we've addressed some of their things. However, technically speaking, they have not received it formally. All of this is pre-formal submittal. So they've given us all the input that they have. We're making the changes with the idea of making it as rubber stamp as possible so that once the council adopts it, then the council forwards it formally for the review by the state. The idea is that when they've received it at that point, there's little tweaks or just rubber stamping through the process rather than, us doing our whole thing in the corner, throwing at them, and then they give us all kinds of comments. So the comments that we've received back so far have been not mundane, but some are consequential. But Allison, as you know, has done a good job of picking up on that. You've looked at them, made a couple little tweaks, so we're pretty confident as we move forward from that.
Allison going to come on the 8th?
Yes, she is.
I hope so.
Yes. I wouldn't have the meeting without her.
I don't think I could answer those questions.
A wise man.
Yes. Other questions from that standpoint? That's one of the biggest things that's going on. And then others, there's a lot of grant stuff going on. The budget process is going on from that standpoint. I'll have once I get one of my nostrils above the water and can breathe again, I will prepare your typical written monthly report. So I'll try to have one to you without too much time going by, and then I'll get myself back in sync with the regular meeting for next month. So my apologies for that. It's been a crazy month.
Yeah, well, I've been a daily observer of your trials and tribulations, so and you're doing, we really appreciate the work that you do here, and working with you, particularly on the comprehensive plan, which was just a very long process, but fruitful finally, after a lot of false starts. So thank you.
We get 10 years from like the date of inception, right? Like we don't have to start writing the next one because it's taken us 4 years to write the first one.
No, this is the 20-year comprehensive plan. By that time, I should be.
Okay, the comprehensive plan,
Pushing up
they want,
daisies.
statutorily, you have to look at 20 years, and the term of the plan is 10 years. My suspicion is that there will be a number of issues that will evolve and hang on. And the way to move through an adoption process and still hold on to those issues is a commitment during the actual motion to adopt, to say, these are the issues that are lingering, charge the planning commission with taking a look at it for the possibility of an amendment. Also, I would suggest that the town seriously consider, at least the planning board, that when you have your annual meeting, for instance, that you annually commit yourself to say, is there anything in the town plan that we've heard over the past year that would warrant initiating an amendment process?
Jim, any update on the Kickamuit Bridge and the Gateway area as a tourister?
So the Gateway project, as I understand, a hearing date has been set.
Correct. It's not on the agenda. I would stay away from the.
Okay, sorry.
technical issue.
Sorry. And Kickamuit, I don't have an update on that in terms of that.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry.
I think there was the original contractor has gone belly up.
Oh, yeah.
And so is there work being done, do you know?
Gateway?
No, I'm sorry, on the Kickamuit Bridge, the
Um,
bike path bridge.
that, the broken bridge you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were talking,
Let it go.
I thought you were talking Settlers Green, sorry.
No, Kickamuit.
So we were way off on tangent on that one, huh? So the broken bridge, I know, right, the contractor basically is no longer doing that work, right? It had to kind of recoil on that a little bit, and I'll have to get an update because I don't have a good update for you from that standpoint.
And that would be helpful
Yeah.
at some point, 'cause it's a long time coming. Anything else?
Is it for next month? Will
that's
Liberty definitely come back, or do they have is there like?
No, it's going through a legal
Yeah, like how long
process.
is that legal, is the legal process quick now for like the Liberty Street, so like,
Yeah.
we continue, but could there be a
Sure.
chance that you
Sure. So
can
there's a
be?
designated land, court, trial calendar. And certainly it's gonna expedite the process. It's designated for these things, these type of issues. It's a one-stop, so before you go to shop, then you go there, now you go directly there, and it's the judge's sign right to that calendar.
Okay.
And it's been very, very, successful with the drug law diversion and stuff like that. So I'm
It's
guessing.
new, though. I mean,
This is-
yeah, this is
Yeah.
brand new, so it's, you know, the chances are it may not be adjudicated by the time our next,
Compared to other ones that take.
Have taken
Right.
years, that's why we're like next month.
Yeah, I know.
You had
I don't-
Shad, and then you had an appeal either way with Shad, and it goes
Yeah.
back.
What's going on with the wastewater treatment plant?
I'm sorry.
Wastewater treatment plant? How's,
There's a lot going on with the wastewater
Did we-
treatment plant. So the, basically, there's, Economic Development Administration grant that that has been submitted, but I've been doing some back and forth with our contact. They're trying to strengthen the application for us because EA wants to give us the money. So before she hands it over to the board that makes a decision at the federal level, she's making sure the application is strong as possible. So there's a lot of effort by one of our engineers from that area, by me, actually a consultant through Rhode Island Commerce that's been assigned to this. So hopefully we can get somewhere between 2.5 and $3 million to do electrical upgrade with added resiliency to the treatment plant. Also, we just received word last week or the week before that Senator Reed, we got an earmark of $2.24 million, which would be focused on the primary sludge treatment, primary tank sludge pump upgrade. So that represents about 80% of the total $2.8 million cost. What I just learned on Friday is that there's an existing state matching program that is, I believe, is funded from the bipartisan or the state's ARPA funds, whatever it is. But that of the 20% that we have to come up with in terms of a match, the state will pay 80% of that. So that leaves us with 4% to pay overall from that standpoint. So if you get 2.8 million, 80% of that is the earmark, and then the remaining 20%, 80% of that is paid by the state. And then whatever 4% of 2.8 million is, that will be the town stuff. So that was good news on Friday. And then what else is going on wastewater?
So would that reduces the bond that we had approved to pay for all this, yeah?
No, this says no, this is
Okay.
totally separate from the $20 million bond.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then what we're trying to do next is put some, an earmark in, for the Wood Street pump station. And I'm working with our engineer right now to come up with updated, preliminary engineering estimate for that. So we'll know how much to put in for the earmark request. I think I covered the basics.
Good. No, motion to adjourn?
well, and what about Penny Lane? When will we have to do anything? Will we see that soon?
Sorry.
Penny Lane?
So as I understand from the town solicitor's office, they're still amid working on the written decisions. At least my understanding is they're working hard to finish up the Liberty Street one this week. And I think Penny Lane hopefully will be shortly after that from that standpoint. But both applicants are anxious to get those out and put on the table.
So is the possibility we might see that next meeting?
I think you'll certainly see Liberty Street at the next meeting, which is nice because it kind of unfolds everything that's overlapping, whether legally or otherwise. And then Penny Lane, I haven't had direct conversation with the solicitor in the last couple of weeks on that, but they do know that that's out there and everybody's waiting for it. And the applicant actually made a status request last week, so I forwarded that on to the town solicitor.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Michael, second, Ashley, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.